And welcome. I'm Maureen Droney with the Recording Academy Producers and Engineers Wing. Thank you all for coming. As many of you know, the P&E Wing is a Recording Academy membership division comprised of about 6,000 members in the United States and elsewhere who work in the music industry as producers and or engineers. Our online series, The Forum, is just one of many programs, events, and initiatives that support and service the members of the P&E Wing, and of course, the Recording Academy membership overall. Our hosts for the forum are two esteemed members of the P&E Wing, Jordan Hamlin in Nashville and Glenn Lorbiecki in the Pacific Northwest, Seattle to be precise. We will be taking questions, so please put yours in the Zoom Q&A function. And now, let's get right to it. Welcome, Jordan and Glenn.
Hey, glad to be here. Hey, Glenn.
What's up?
Oh, I see Nashville in the chat too.
Oh man, everybody's
Glad
here.
to be back together on what this is a sneakily it's hard to sell that this is an important topic sometimes because it sounds a little boring, but it's not. It's actually can really make a bad day. Uh gosh, we'll get into horror stories, but I've heard some horror stories.
Oh, do we get to tell
Um
horror stories? That would be awesome.
I hope so. That'll be the after chat. Um We have some amazing guests. Should we tell people about them? But first, wait. Shall we poll the room? Because I want to see where everyone is on their backup journey. So we're gonna throw up a poll and everybody answer a couple of questions about your current systems, if you have any, what they are. And while you do that, we're going to give you some auditory information about our guest.
And one note about the poll here is if you're employing some sort of backup system that you don't see listed, it says here like the bottom choice is specify in the chat. Please let us know if you've got some secret cool thing that you want to share with everybody because we're all here to learn.
That's right. We don't gatekeep in this room.
That's right. Doggone
That's right. That's what the kids say.
it. Well, shall we work our way through the bios?
Yeah, let's introduce these guests.
Excellent. We have amazing and qualified people today on our panel. The first introduction is for Chris Constable. Chris is a studio engineer at Iron Mountain Media and Archival Services, bringing over 20 years of professional audio experience. He previously served as Associate Director of Audio Engineering at SAE Institute in Hollywood and Director of Operations at Slate Digital, overseeing products including the Raven MTI touchscreen interface. Chris contributed to the motion picture Walk Hard, recreating historically accurate recording techniques, and worked at iconic studios such as Nightbird, Ocean Studios, and Sonora Recorders. A Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences graduate, he enjoys live music, supporting animal rescues, and volunteering on audio projects at the Bob Baker Marionette Theater. Welcome, Chris.
Hi, all.
We also have Anna Frick with us. Anna Frick is a mastering engineer with decades of experience working on records that matter. Her credits span a remarkable range from Billy Strings, Della Mae, Fireside Collective, Fruition, and Clay Street Unit, alongside historical releases including John Denver, Bobby Darin, Ella Jenkins, and Third Man Records Grammy-winning The Rise and Fall of Paramount Records box set. Her skills were shaped during her years at Airshow Mastering, one of the country's longest-running mastering studios. In 2021, she founded Ally Sound, a boutique studio built on working directly with artists, producers, and engineers on projects where craft comes first. Welcome, Anna.
Hey everyone, happy to be here.
Last and certainly not least, we had a brief preview of Rodney a moment ago, but now he's back for real. Rodney Darkchild Jerkins is one of the most prolific music creatives of his generation, with a career spanning more than 30 years as a producer, songwriter, musician, and mentor. Known for his genre-spanning influence across R&B, pop, hip-hop, gospel, and beyond, he's played a pivotal role in shaping the sound and success of countless artists. His work includes iconic songs like Brandy and Monica's The Boy Is Mine, Destiny Child's Say My Name, and Michael Jackson's Rock My World, contributing to numerous Billboard Top 10 records and earning Grammy recognition. Beyond music production, Jerkins has built a multifaceted brand that includes ventures in publishing, tech, real estate, and artist development. Through his long-standing songwriting camps, he's cultivated a collaborative space for emerging creatives, reinforcing his commitment to mentorship and community. His induction into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2025 reflects both his industry impact and dedication to inspiring others as he continues to expand his legacy through new projects, partnerships, and his faith-based label, Aliens Alive. Welcome, Rodney. Now turn the camera on. Awesome.
Crowd noise.
What's up, everybody?
Welcome.
Awesome. Awesome to
I
be
should
here.
really have a sampler ready to trigger like crowd noise, maybe some Foley. We'll work on it next time.
Yeah.
Just please no air horns.
Oh my goodness, we have the results of the poll. Okay.
Already? Wow.
Number one, how do you currently back up your projects? It looks like front runner, multiple copies in various. Okay, so both physical and cloud. This is not the most irresponsible crowd. Okay, some physical only, some cloud only. Oh, 0% doesn't back up. Oh, I'm so proud of us. And other. Okay. Okay, we'll look for the other. Glenn, do you want to look at number two?
Yeah, backup system in place. Some folks are using the default backup system. If you're on a Mac, that would be Time Machine, I suppose. Auto backup program service, there are lots of subscription services. I have one of those as well. Manual backup system seems to be the big winner here. So when
Are we
you're
talking
done,
drag and drop kind of thing?
that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Probably.
You know, plug in your SCSI drive and have
SCSI.
at it.
My drive is very clean, thank you.
Uh, where's the drummer? We need a drummer in here. Okay. And 8% of the folks do not use a backup system. I'm not quite sure what that means, but I hopefully someone will explain in the chat what that means.
It could, maybe it's like there's not a systemic kind of thing in place and they just do it when they need to, but it's not like every month or every week this is happening or something like that. I'm curious. Okay, so you mentioned what's your system, Glenn? I'm curious what our like panelists' personal.
Oh, Jordan, we should go first and talk about our systems briefly for backup, and then I'm really curious to hear what everyone else has to say about this too. I kind of have two schemes. My personal projects, I will back up to multiple SSDs, and then I also have a cloud-based storage system where I can keep everything accessible no matter where I am. It's pretty straightforward, but I would not call any of it deep storage. It's all pretty much accessible. I also, my day job is I'm audio lead at Microsoft Production Studios in Redmond, Washington, and of course we have an enterprise system, and that's why that question made it into the poll, is to see how many other people have access. Like if you work at a school or if you work at a major label, do you have access to an enterprise system? So here at Microsoft, we've got an IBM Isilon storage, snapshot-based storage system with 300 petabytes online, which is pretty healthy, I would think. And we also have a dedicated media management team, and they will take things offline to either slow data rate cloud storage like AWS Glacier, or in this case, Microsoft has its own version, or LTO. What about you, Jordan?
Wow, you have very fancy things. And I'm gonna Google
Not mine.
some of those
I'm not
words
writing that
later. I'm gonna Google. I'm gonna have the thesaurus ready. I try to have multiple physical drives. I try to work. Because I'm working so directly with the artists, I'm often like educating them and suggesting things to them and making sure they're doing their due diligence because, you know, they don't always come in knowing that. But I've got Backblaze always going. What which I like, and it's so like non-invasive and inexpensive. Not sponsored. Not a sponsored endorsement. And I try to have multiple drives in multiple locations. Systemically, if I'm tracking, I've had enough horror stories like a friend's house got broken into and he was, in his production pipeline was 5 full records. And that was the only drive, and the people who broke into the house took them. And that's so just like losing a record, it's bigger than stealing a computer. So that just like put the fear of God in me, as they say. And so I try to make sure, like, as soon as we're done tracking for the day, if the artist is going to the hotel or something, it's going to be on the cloud, on the drive here, and going with them if I can help it. And then I try to keep it, I'm kind of generous with artists where I try to keep it long as I can. Even, I can't keep everything, but I try to like, I'm such an archivist that I like to keep things for people as long as I can. But then like systemically, I'm trying to create a little like script where I can send them a notice after a certain amount of time and say, this is going to expire. Make sure it's on you now, kind of. We'll get the language better than that. But I would say that's my system. How about you, Chris?
Well, here at Iron Mountain, we run multiple different types of backup systems. So, we are a large corporation that does a lot of data storage and offers services, cloud services, as well as server-based. We have an enterprise system that also uses AWS services like Glenn was talking about. And we do offer that to clients. But many of our clients, because of the security of the things that we're working on, they don't want it to hit a server ever, despite the fact that our servers are extremely secure. We have never had any kind of issues. There are clients who are just transferring stuff that is such a high level and they're so scared of anything possibly getting out. They don't want it ever to hit our server. That gets delivered on hard disk drives. We do keep a copy here on a hard disk drive, usually for around 1 month or until the client verifies that they have gotten the files. And then from there, honestly, that stuff gets removed. It gets deleted, and that is at the client request. If the client does not request, everything goes onto our servers. We keep it there for a period of 1 to 3 years, depending on what was in the contract. And also, we make certain that the client has verified any information before it gets deleted. If they haven't verified the information, obviously, we'll reach out to them and make sure that they have verified that they have gotten delivery of everything. And then for long-term backup, we are still using LTOs. LTO tape is still kind of the archival standard if you're doing stuff really long term.
And as a quick follow-up, Chris, I'm not sure how many people in this audience are in a position to hire out services for archival or backup, but
Right.
How do they base payment for that sort of thing? Is there a fee per byte, or what's the?
Yeah, there's a fee. I believe the payment structure is a fee per gigabyte. And if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've worked with sales on this, but I think it was like 7 cents a gig or somewhere around there
Per year?
per year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I, Anna has a great story about archival, and so I'm sorry, I'm going to skip over you for a second, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask Rodney about his backpack.
Well, when we're backing up things, my engineers, they deal with all the cloud stuff and the big monster drives that are like the ones you don't go places with because they're too big to go places with. Me in my backpack, I move around with about 8 drives, 8 to 10 drives a day. If I have 10 fingers, it's usually 10 drives. And so this is kind of like
Yes.
five
Oh my
of,
gosh.
Man,
this is half of it. Like each one is 4 terabyte. I like to back up the backup, the backup. And what that means is I like to, whatever I back up, um, I like to leave it safely at a location. So I have a backup that's like safe somewhere in my home, whether it's in a safe somewhere. Um, and then I like to have 2 more of that. And it's just because I'm super just like nervous a lot of times at losing what is essentially our life, right? Everything that we work on, everything that we do is now in the palm of my hand. And I like to have access to it at all times. And I like someone to also have access from my team. If I'm somewhere and something happens, they can easily get to it. Um, and that's really, and I'm talking about um, everything from VHS tapes to DVD to music files, everything. Like I back up I mean, I'm telling you, I literally will have in my room down here in my studio, I have a VHS machine set up, and we literally just find things from 1994, 1999, 98, and and I'll just say back it up, and to make sure that we always have it, because you just never know what it's going to be utilized for.
That's amazing.
Your turn, Jordan.
Or Anna. Right?
Yeah. Well, I'll first start talking about the studio that I have now, Ally Sound. So here I've got my general backup is I have a working drive that I'm working to every day. At the end of each day, I back that up to the cloud, and then I copy everything to another hard drive that I keep offsite. About twice a month, I do that. And then as those fill out, I move those further and further away from my house. So that's kind of my general backup here at the studio. But the story that Glenn was mentioning, I used to work at Airshow, and Airshow mastering is up in the woods above Boulder, Colorado. And we are in a very fire-prone area. So it just so happened that Dave Glasser, the owner of that studio, is also a volunteer firefighter. And so we were constantly under threat of fire. And so we had a very strict protocol about what would happen when there was a fire coming our way. And so he would always get, called off to the fire. So it was left to me to take care of the studio, and that involved quite often we had sensitive reels that that were taken out of the vault somewhere, sent to us for remastering, and so we had to take care of those. We had a very small cabinet there to keep those in very intentionally, so that we didn't keep too many on site. We had another site in town that was climate controlled and secure and out of most of fire danger. So we kept things there as needed and brought them up to the studio as we were ready to work on them. So it was this constant shuffling tapes back and forth to keep them safe. But there was the protocol of how to power down the studio, what to take when we leave, including all those reels that were in there. And things like taking the curtains down off the windows and taping up the vents and doing all that kind of thing to keep everything safe as best as possible. And then we also had cloud storage on site and off site backups as well.
That's an amazing story. I mean, I don't know how many folks think about that eventuality. What if there is a flood? What if there is a fire? What if? So how? Great story, but what did this result in? I mean,
Yeah.
please talk about the initiative that spun out of this experience.
Yeah, so it just so happened that one day when I had to evacuate the studio once again, I happened to I went home and I had a P&E committee meeting with my chapter that night, and we were kind of just talking about things, and someone asked how my day was, and I said, "Oh, I had to evacuate the studio again for the third time in 2 weeks." And then someone said, "Oh, I had to do that with my studio, a little while back, and oh, so and so's studio flooded." And we realized that there were, as we were chatting, there were all these tips that we were swapping that a lot of us hadn't heard. Things like taking the curtains off the windows, because even if the fire doesn't touch the building, the heat can be so intense that it can spontaneously combust. And so We thought, there should be some sort of consolidation of all these tips and tricks to keep our studio safe. And so we ran that up the flagpole at the P&E wing and created the studio emergency preparedness document that we released last year. So Candace and I worked for several years on that. And I invite everyone to check it out. I think we might be able to throw it up on the screen here too, but it has some just really practical steps of how to make sure you're keeping up with everything, outside of data backup, how you're keeping your studio safe, keeping inventories of things, knowing where your information for your insurance is, all that kind of thing. So it's up on the producers and engineers site. I really invite everyone to take a look at it. There's, the quick reference guide worksheet is like just if you do nothing else, just do those things. A one sheet that is form that you can fill out, and if you just update that every year, then you'll have everything you need in the case of an emergency. Because when we hit an emergency, our minds kind of go haywire. And so if you have everything organized ahead of time, you're one step ahead of the game.
Right. That's not the time to start putting a plan in place.
Exactly.
Doing some quick R&D. Yeah, it's such a great document. You guys put so much time and effort into it. Candace did drop the link into the chat, and we just got a little preview. Yeah, just glancing through, and I know we're at the anniversary of the Nashville floods. And we're on the heels of LA fire, feels like just happened. There's so many of us that I think this might happen more and more as weather keeps weathering. That we're all going to be faced with a moment where either you've got to evacuate, things just happen, so just plan on them happening is such a takeaway, no matter what your range is. And I think that's a lot of like, what's your budget? What are the things that matter to you? Like Rodney, you mentioned access online. That's huge, to be able to can I get to my stuff? How often are you using that? I feel like I'm always.
Yeah, often, very, very often. I mean, and I know we'll get into the labeling process of it all because it's so important, the organization part. But yeah, often because I travel a lot. So because I'm traveling, to different places and I have engineers in different studios that I have, I'm always like, hey, let's lock in online together and go through things, and just make sure things are always tight and easy for me to get to something. So yeah, I think having that backup online is super crucial.
And did somebody teach you that? Were you just always organized?
You know what happened in 1999? I was working with Michael Jackson, and I was finishing my third leg of working with him in New York City at Sony Studios. And he had called me and said, hey, can you grab all of the reel-to-reels and take them to your studio? And I'm like, for what reason? He was like, because I want them to be stored at your studio to the end of the project. So imagine you're talking about
Precious cargo.
Oh my gosh. And so getting back to the studio, this is really before the digital thing. It was kind of, Pro Tools was just starting, just getting warm. So we were kind of working in both Pro Tools and still had the reels, the physical reels. And, what that taught me was, man, if anything happens today, I'm responsible for all of these Michael Jackson songs, not even just my songs, just the songs that he was working on that project. And I was just like, from there, it just clicked, like, we have to back up. We have to figure out ways to back up everything. And that was really the beginning of me kind of just, always telling, everyone around, back it up, back it up, back it up, back it up. Make sure we have multiple backups of everything because I don't want anything to go wrong. And as you guys all know, like, a backup can go wrong, right? You can have a backup, pull up the backup and be like, what just happened? The file was there and it's not, So that's kind of why you have to kind of just think about really what's really important, right? When you're creating legacy, creating music and history, it's like, okay, is it worth it to take that extra, couple days to make sure you're super tight and have everything really tight, it's worth it in the long run. Yeah, it could be a little tedious and you're like, oh gosh, this process, because I'm a manual guy. I like to watch it and look at it and make sure it's, and sometimes it takes a long time. But then when I look at what I have and I look at all the backups that I'm like, yo, like I'm airtight. Everything I have my whole life, my whole history of my whole career is backed up. So no one could ever ask me, hey, Rodney, can you get me something from 1997 or 98, which often happens, right? Especially we're now in the Atmos era where a lot of the companies are going back to do Atmos mixes of songs from back in the day. So I'll get calls and be like, hey, can you pull up, the If You Have My Love files from Jennifer Lopez? I'm like, yeah, I'll get it to you in a second. And it's not a thing because everything is so organized and knowing where it's at. And they're like, wow, you got that to us really fast. And then, it lets me know that not just myself, but my team is doing a good job and making sure everything is backed up and organized.
And just to kind of tag on to that, when someone doesn't do what Rodney does and have everything organized and labeled, that's when we get a bunch of hard drives from labels saying like, can you look through all of these and figure out if you can find the files for this thing?
Oh man.
Yeah, and that really speaks. And that, by the way, Chris, that really speaks to the organization part, which is just as much. It's more important, in my opinion, than even the backup. Right, just being
Absolutely.
from day one, being organized. Which, by the way, I think a lot of us from that dealt with track sheets back in the day, it allowed us to think differently from an organization standpoint because we had to physically write down with pencil the kick, the snare, lead vocal one, the background. Where now you got guys that just work in, let's say, Logic or whatever DAW system that they're in, and they're just going down to the next track and they're not labeling it. So a lot of times I'll get files and I'm just like, yo, where's the lead vocals at? Oh, it's under track one. I'm like, what? I hate that because the organization is you're supposed to make things easier for the next person that's going to take it on,
Yes.
in my opinion. So it's just like, being organized is what's going to, it makes the process, a lot easier for all of us, and the record companies and anyone that's going to be involved with the project.
Totally.
So we have, anytime you talk to an IT person around here, they say data isn't data unless it lives in 3 different places. So whether it's a hard drive at my house, a hard drive at work, and a cloud storage, 3 physically distinct separate places. Rodney, I'm assuming you have 3 different backpacks that
I do. It's funny. I literally have a backpack full of drives in one of my storage places in my house. Just it's a backpack for the backups. It's hilarious.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
maybe the best
hilarious.
system I could imagine.
I'm a little bit. I will say I'm a little bit crazy with it though, Glenn. Like my wife, the other day, my wife said, I told my wife, I said, can you bring me a pair of gray socks out of my drawer, just a pair of gray socks. She said she went to look for the socks. She said, I see a bunch of drives in here. Why is there drives in your sock drawer?
Rodney, you're not that crazy.
I'm here for it.
Nobody's not going to think to go in the sock drawer to get anything. So I'll put them in my sock drawer. Like, it is what it is. Like I know where my things are, and I feel like your socks are something that you're going to put on every day. So your drives need to be that accessible.
Yeah, and after the LA fires last year, one of the things I did was to put all of my backup drives into a bag that's right by my go bag so that if anything happens when I run out of the house, I'm grabbing that bag.
Yes.
That's a great tip.
Well, so I wanted to ask Chris about the stuff that comes in the door at your shop. Like I look behind you and I see a wash machine sized device back there that
with those weird VU meter things on it.
Yeah, I no idea what that is, but kidding, of course. So the projects you're gonna get from Jordan or from Anna or from Rodney are
Mhm.
gonna be labeled. It's not gonna be audio one, audio two, audio 5,000. It's gonna
Absolutely.
be well organized. I'm gonna make an assumption here that every project you get is like that, that it's really tight and organized and
Of course, absolutely. Everything, the tapes are always labeled. There's a session level marked on everything. I know exactly what to align to. Yeah, no. No, we get a ton of stuff in that is, poorly labeled or not labeled. We're constantly having to kind of make guesses on what things actually were and what things are. One of the biggest ones that we run into nowadays is, labels are going back and they're trying to do high res versions of mixes and things like that to release now that HD streaming is coming out. So we'll get a drive that came, that was the mixes that were sent to mastering, and you've got marked. Sometimes, luckily, there's marked vocal up, vocal down, those kinds of things. But what's almost never marked is which mix was actually used for mastering. So, they'll send us something and we've got four different mixes sitting there and they're like, okay, can you send us what was used for the record? I'm like, I don't know. I have absolutely no idea because nothing got marked. Or you'll get, and we've all done this, you get final. No, final underscore final dot two, final underscore final. No, this is really it. Those kinds of things. And it's one of those things where like you never think to really go back and label, okay, which was the one that was actually used. So one thing that I would, request and suggest to people to do, UTO, use this one. Go back and label your final tracks underscore UTO. Anyone down the line should be able to figure out UTO means use this one. Okay, that's the thing that we're looking for.
I like that hot tip.
Good. That's good.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any labeling? Labeling is a huge topic. I mean, are we ready to get into it? I feel like everybody has their own quirks and systems. I want to hear all of them.
Well, you definitely, in my opinion, you definitely got first thing is the year. Like lock in your year when you're labeling your drives. I think it's so important to know what year is because a lot of times when I'm working, I'm always like I kind of know my error of certain what I worked on in a certain era time. Like, yeah, that was definitely in that 2009 to 2010, 11 era. You know what I mean? So it's just easy for me from a year standpoint to be able to tell my guy 9 or 10 is one of those two. You know what I mean? And it would be harder if it was just like if it didn't have any of that, and now they got to go through and go through just to try to find. I think you need to also just be very uh, take the extra to create the metadata, right? Take the extra second to put like if there was a co-writer, put their name on it, right? Because sometimes like let's say if you have an idea that you worked on and necessarily wasn't a song, and it was a track idea. Take the extra second to put the genre, the style, or whatever it is, and maybe a co-writer did some melodies, and it's like, oh, Glenn did melodies, so let me put in Glenn, so that way it's easier for you to be able to type it in and get back to it a lot quicker.
And are
Another
you
thing,
talking about, just real quick, are you talking about bouncing, add bounce out of session moment right then?
yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay. Just confirm.
Correct. And then another thing too, I think is important too, is like um, having code words, secret hidden names for certain things. So for example, I have like tons of Michael Jackson footage when I worked with Michael. I don't label it Michael Jackson. Nowhere will you find it under Michael Jackson, right? It's under whatever code name I put it under, just because if it was to ever get stolen or something, and somebody's like, "Oh, I know he worked with Michael Jackson. Let me type in Michael Jackson, see what I can find." They're not going to be able to find under that. It's going to make they're going to have to dig a little harder to get to it.
Good
So,
idea. It's like
yeah,
hiding the good chips and the bag of the bad chips. So nobody.
correct,
Yeah.
Co-
Good.
correct.
or, or putting them in your wife's sock drawer. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I
What
got
about you,
that.
Anna?
Speaking to the labeling it with a year, because I work on, multiple projects that will go on a single hard drive. So the way I handle everything is I kind of geek out. My mother was a librarian, so, I'm still mourning the loss of the Dewey Decimal System just a little bit. But I have a CRM system that will when I create a new project, it creates a unique project number, and I label the folder with that number. And so automatically my files on a hard drive are organized chronologically by the way that the project was done in my queue. So that automatically tells me, where things are. So I can label the hard drive with the year, but also a project number range. So I know if I look up in my database and say, it's project 17643, I know which hard drive it's on and know where that's at. So that's how I organize everything at that level. And then, in the project folder, I always make the assumption that future me is an idiot. So, and isn't going to be able to decipher, what present me was talking about. So I keep everything very regimented. I have a delivery folder that is everything that was delivered to the client, the final deliverables. I've got a source files folder, which is the mixes. And then I have a text document where I keep file notes. So, and those are duplicated in my database. So that way I can see, okay, so we used version 6 of this song, but version 2 of this song on the final record. So I can kind of go back and see it without having to dig into the files. So that's kind of my methodology. And then, because in mastering, you want to deliver the clean file names. I delete all the version numbers off, but the folder name will continue to have the version number in it.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm gonna write all those down. I am thinking about like how to apply. Also, former librarian. That's the only like straight job I ever had, was reference section librarian.
I think also because I've worked on a lot of really large archival collections, it is vital for me to be able to keep those all those assets, the physical assets and the digital assets matched in some way. So having an accession number attached, labeled on the reel or the cassette or whatever it is, and having that matched in the file name and then in a database or a spreadsheet is really crucial to me. So that way, sometimes a reel box might have, this is best artist ever. And then when you put the reel up, it's actually like worst artist ever. And, if you label the file best artist ever, it's not accurate to what is the actual content. So having just a content-free number allows us for some metadata iterations.
Yeah, I love a paper trail too, of like just a quick note to yourself. I feel like sometimes on tapes it was easier, or in more traditional kind of like session label studio system, just having people write things down, because that is the pipeline to crediting, which is also messy. So having messy to messy is, got to really be on it. And someone, if I may, in chat, Eric Emery was saying about as a mixer, I'm always unsure of my role in file storage. Should we assume the responsibility? Like, I'm curious where everybody stands about how long should everybody in the pipeline keep stuff? How long do you keep things? Are you talking to the client about that up front? Just curious what everybody's kind of protocol is for that.
I mean, for me, when I'm on personal stuff that I'm working on with clients for mixing and stuff like that outside of here, I think the biggest thing is making sure that the communication with the client is very clear, so that they know how long you're keeping things, they know what their responsibility is, so that they're not coming back to you 2 years later and saying like, "Oh, I thought you would keep it." And that's really the biggest thing.
But
yeah,
that begs another question. I'm sorry, Jordan, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just, part of that question too was about the different levels of clients. There's different things. If you've got, Michael Jackson versus an indie band who's like never had to, they worked on, somebody else dealt with that. Maybe sometimes like honestly bigger artists who were big in the, some decade and don't have the same sort of team around them to white glove, file, transfer. I've had artists where I'm like, do you know where your masters are for these giant records? And they're like, oh, not really. And they're a different manager. So you never know where the knowledge gaps are. And I feel like that's a modern thing that we kind of all have to play a part in,
I mean,
is keeping that.
Hey,
my
another
basic rule is if you don't know who's in charge of the backup, it's your responsibility. So, if you haven't had that conversation and defined who is responsible, then you are responsible. I try to keep everything indefinitely. I make no promises because, things happen. But I do like to be that savior. So when people say, "Oh, I lost the mixes," they can come to me and I'm able to recover that, and makes me the hero. And I love being able to do that, and I take pride in that. But also no guarantees on that. So I definitely keep everything, because it's final masters unless I'm told not to by a client or a label. But yeah, if you haven't defined on the project who's responsible, then you are responsible.
But that's not always universal, I think. Well, and sometimes even the best laid plans of mice and men. The universal vault fire a few years ago, that was supposed to be a safe repository for all of this media, and ended up not being. And I don't know if they had a backup offsite or not, but there are these stories like when the makers of the movie Moulin Rouge went to re-release the soundtrack, they couldn't find the original master at all. That's lost to time. And this is stuff I'm sure that Chris, that you have to deal with this all the time. But what do you do when that length of time expires? When you have a contract with well, Prince has his own archive, I'm sure, but insert name of famous artist here. What do you do when your contract expires with them? What do you do with that data?
I mean, it's one of those things where, again, we will reach out to the client whenever we can. The unfortunate part is that, sometimes clients have changed all of their contact info, they've dropped off grid, we can't get in touch with them or something like that. And in those cases, it will have been written into the contract exactly how long things get kept afterwards. I believe it's standard for us is 1 to 3 years that we will continue to try to reach out to verify that the client has the information. And after 3 years, I know it's wiped.
What's your
Scary.
protocol, Rodney? Do you work it into the contract and keep it for a long time, or you just happen to be really good at it and come through, kind of be the hero, like Anna was saying?
Yeah, no, we keep. I mean, we keep it for a long time. I think one of the things that's important is that what people need to really understand is that um, all everything that is created has a value. Whether you want to believe it or not, whether you think it's just garbage, right? And so you might have worked. I was looking at Eric's question in the chat about, could have been a local rock band or whatever for over 20 years. You might be thinking, oh, that's 20 years ago. That's just garbage. Okay. So who's to say, like, 40 years down the road, you have this something that pops up and they're looking for something that feels like a demo. Like there's a TV show being created and looking for rock music from a certain era that sounds like demo music. And it's like, wait, hold on. Okay, let me call these guys. This might be the perfect opportunity. So I always look at things like, listen, well, what's being created always, if it's been created, it's something there. And you should, that's why I always tell engineers when engineers are recording, like every take, just keep it. Like, yeah, we'll comp the vocals. A lot of times you'll see somebody might comp the vocals and then they get rid of all the previous takes and they're like, we don't need it no more. We got the comp that's going out. Yeah, but if I do a remix, maybe I want to try a different style of a take or whatever. So
Totally.
just keep it. Just keep it and back that up. And so, you give someone that other option because again, 20 years later, there may be a big movie coming out and they're like, hey, pull up the files, original files. I wonder if there's more ad libs or there's a different melody sang that way. The second verse was that way. So, it's just important for us to kind of think ahead if we can, think down the road. I know it's not easy, but try to think about, it could be a bright light for something that you thought was just,
Well, you
yeah.
raised an interesting point earlier, Rodney, by saying that people are contacting you constantly for material from the 90s. I think in the moment it's hard to realize that this is your legacy. This is going to make you money. It will pay you back in the future. And if you don't have access to it, there's a whole revenue stream that's potentially lost. But
Yeah.
have
I had something that brought me value without even realizing. I was backing up. Check this out. I was backing up a VHS moment where ODB, old dirty bastard, he basically walked into my studio that I was recording out of. It's called Enterprise Studios when they were open in LA. He walked in the room and he just started freestyling. He just started rapping over whatever it is I was playing, and somebody caught it on camera, right? And it was just him freestyling. Anyway, I end up backing that up, and as I was backing up that file, I realized, hey, maybe I can use that now. And on SZA's last album, there's a song called Forgiveness on her last album featuring Old Dirty Bastard that came from that VHS tape.
oh man,
That's so
That's where the
good.
rap came from. So it just shows you why it's important, and and why it's, like, again, why it has value.
Totally. I feel like these are my people because I just have always been compelled to document and archive everything because I think and it reminds me what I often tell artists when they're, flipping out about making a record is you're just making a record of who you are in this moment and this time with this technology and this amount of record budget or whatever. Like, don't have it in a way, in a weird way, like say what you have to say and move on. And um and that's such a great, like, whenever we value, just people are creative and they make, and we make creative things, and those have value. That's so important to like realign to. That's cool. Okay, so the cost is a thing that we haven't touched on. What's Glenn mentioned the rising cost of SSD drives. Are there different drives that things come into play? Do you have a cost when you are prioritizing digital versus physical? Does anybody have any data around that?
I mean, I think with inflation, everything is going to rise in cost, right? It's a natural thing that happens each year for anything. Again, I go back to value. The cost doesn't mean anything when it depends on what you value things are. At where you value things at. So if you know this is an important part of your life and what you do every day, then you can't really worry about what that cost is.
Are
You
you
got to
fine to
worry.
absorb that for the client?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I just think I think if we look at it more so like this is a necessity, like it has to be, like there's no other way around it. It's part of our process, and you don't really worry about that because the value of it is too important.
To speak to the SSD thing specifically for the people who may not be aware, the cost of SSD drives has been spiking really massively, and that is because of all the memory that is being eaten up by data centers. It's the same reason that we're having trouble getting solid state memory for computers. Computer prices are going up, everything is going up because there is such a huge demand for all this data. And unfortunately, memory centers are planning what their manufacturing is going to be 1 to 3 years in advance. They can't just ramp up production of new memory quickly. So I think SSD drives are probably going to remain inflated for a while. The other thing with SSD drives is they haven't been around nearly as long as spinning drives. So from a long-term archival perspective, we like to go with things that we know. Like the standard for backing up audio, if you're going really long term, is still analog tape, because we know that we can pull up an analog tape, we can bake it, and we can get the information off of it, even if it's been around for 70 to 80 years. We know we can still get that off. Hard drives obviously haven't been around that long. The failure rates are different and that kind of thing. But I think for long-term backups, you're still okay going with the slightly cheaper spinning drives. Just make sure with any drive, whether it's solid state, whether it's a spinning drive, anything like that, you want to plug it in at least every 3 to 6 months or so. Make sure it powers up. Make sure the spinning drive still spins. They're like old cars. Like if they sit for too long, things can seize up, things can go bad. So it is important to make sure that you're plugging in your drives and powering things on. Like I said, every 3 to 6 months at most, just to make sure that everything's still there.
And that's also why you have it across multiple formats,
Yeah.
cloud and physical storage and that kind of thing. So, there's a backup there as well. So if it were to fail, or not be able to spin up, you're not, SOL, you've still got, the cloud storage or something else. So yeah, diversification of methods is important as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for putting a time frame on that, Chris. I'm here sitting in for Glenn here because he had to go
Oh
to
yeah.
another thing. But I heard somebody say that if you check every your hard drives every 3 years, that's great. And I was thinking, no, that's not the right amount of time. So you just said every few months, every.
Yeah, I would, every few months is what I do with my stuff for sure, especially on the spinning drives, and the SSDs. The SSDs we know will hold data for a little longer, but again, it's one of those things where they do kind of rely on being powered up every so often to make sure that the memory holds a charge.
It's good info. Yeah, thanks for sitting in for us, Maureen. I don't know Glenn had to jump, but this has been such a good combo. Are there any other things that what are some like words of wisdom if you that you would leave us with of like,
I
you know
think
what, this is really important to me.
I think the other thing that we haven't talked about, and this is opening a bit of a can of worms right as we're getting to time here, but uh, uh, the idea of somebody had posted a question about different operating systems, but also if we're working with audio files, a lot of the times we rely on plugins, and those plugins change, or you might not have them, and your settings might not be retained. And so if you print those files with the settings and without them, then there's stability there. So have some kind of a screenshot of your settings if you're that, if you really want to get that deep. I can't tell you how many times I've been asked to match a master to a master without knowing. So I'm given the mix and I'm given the master, and I need to, match it so I can do the stems or something like that. And I have to sit there and, reverse engineer the master to figure out what happened. Because the originals weren't available for whatever reason. So I think printing your effects on your files so that they can be opened in any DAW, regardless of era, is also important, and then labeling them as such.
Yeah, and kind of speaking to that as well, just on the file format stuff, we're getting more and more sessions in here now that we're hitting the 20 to 25 year anniversary points of session, records that were worked on late 90s, early 2000s, where we're getting in hard drives that have SD2 files. And SD2 files cannot be handled by modern Pro Tools systems. So we have an older rig around that still runs OS 9 that I can take that hard drive to, open up the SD2s, convert them over to waves, and save them in the newest Pro Tools format so that an engineer down the road can mix with them. But it is important to make sure that you're on top of what's going on with changes in file types, changes in Pro Tools versions, changes in other things, and make sure that you're updating your older sessions into things that can still be worked with.
How about you, Rodney?
Same as Chris. That's how we do it.
Yeah,
Same way. Yeah.
This is awesome. These are my people. These are file labeling. I love it. This is not a placement, but sometimes sometimes you need kind of a schema map too of like where your stuff is for yourself. I use Airtable. I love Airtable. Maybe sometimes too much. I have had a friend ask me to talk about it less. So sorry to that man. But it's great. It's like a relational databasing, but I export session info as text or whatever, and you can anyway, I like import, so you can assign at all levels of the session name and what hard drive it's on and the link to its digital backup and all the stuff. But this has been such an important and awesome topic with such great guests. I appreciate everybody's time and joining us here today. It's really been great. I think sharing this knowledge is so I don't know. I believe in the not gatekeepy knowledge sharing, so everybody can be a part of it and make all the things.
And I just wanted to note real quick because I misspoke earlier. Our charge is actually per terabyte, not per gigabyte.
difference. Also, I'm gonna
Big
Google for
difference.
these. He said petabyte. I'm gonna have to.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to learn about those. I'll go Google that later.
Yeah, we
Uh,
also have about a 300 petabyte system here.
okay, petabyte. How big is that? Just
A petabyte is, I believe, 1,000 terabytes.
okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, but we
awesome.
also deal with a lot of video stuff. So we're getting, we've got very large files.
We're just gonna keep making things.
We
Where's it
are.
gonna go? Okay, we'll think about that. We'll think about that offline.
Lots
Thank you
of
guys so
lots
much.
of good info in the lots of good info. If people want to watch again, lots of good info in the chat as well. And just want to say a couple of things that pulled out from that really related with me was I love that somebody said about best practices is being and what best practices in all of this is really about is being considerate of the next person down the line in the chain, right? I mean, that's what best practices are. And then somebody else said, have it. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So some pretty good comments. A really good audience here. Thank you all for coming. Any parting words from the rest of you before?
I just want to shout out the delivery recommendations document that has file naming protocols and best practices in there. So
Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of engineers and producers worked hard on that, and it's in several iterations, and it's pretty up to date right now. So yeah, that's good information, and you can find it at producersengineers.com on the Recording Academy site. So hope this program was helpful for everybody, and let us know if you have comments and questions. You can reach me at maureen.droney@grammy.com. And thanks again for joining us. Any other last words, Jordan?
Back up your backups.
Back up your backups. Yeah, that was what Rodney came up with that. So
TM. I'll give him
yeah,
points on that.
he gets points on that. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you next time, and let us know if you have ideas for this conversation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thanks, everybody.